This is the agenda for the regular board meeting. Village of Burnham, on the day of March 9, 2021. This time I will ask for a clerk to call the meeting to order.
Trustee Cap?
Present.
Trustee Bonner? Present. Trustee Garcia? Here. Trustee Greer? Here. Trustee Richardson? Here. Trustee Claybrook?
Here. Form and present, can we stand for the pledge of allegiance? Trustee Bonner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any approval or corrections of the minutes? February 23rd, 2021. Any corrections to the minutes? We have no correction. I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes of February 23rd, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
There's a motion by trustee Cap to approve the minutes. Can we have a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Greer. Will clerk take roll?
Trustee Cap?
Yes.
Trustee Bonner? Trustee Garcia? Trustee Greer? Trustee Richardson?
Yes.
Trustee Claybrook?
All right, motion passed. Thank you. And before we open the session to the public, if you have any public comments, then you can make your comment. This will not be a Q&A. This will not be a Q&A. So, meaning that we will not be answering questions. So if you want to make a comment to the board, please say that. So at this time, I will ask for a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Make a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Can you time? Motion on the floor by trustee Slater. Can we have a second, please?
Can you time me too?
Second by trustee Richardson. The clerk take the roll.
Trustee Cap?
Yes.
Trustee Bonner? Yes. Trustee Garcia? Trustee Greer?
Yes.
Trustee Richardson?
Yes.
Trustee Claybrook?
All right, motion passed. Thank you. The meeting is now open for public comments. The meeting now open for public comments.
Yes, I'm John Haidu. Mr. Polk, last meeting when I was here, you told me that I've lived here for 58 years, and I really don't know what's going on in Burnham besides that. And I take offense to that. You know, I've seen your report card, which is the audits, and you've been mayor for 16 years. You started with $800,000 surplus, and today you have a $6.3 million deficit. Them are both facts. I've been self-employed in Burnham for 21 years as a handyman, and I have no report card, but I do have a house, so I've done okay. If I ran my business like you run Burnham, sir, I'd be in bankruptcy, but you get away with that in politics and government. I'll compare my business record against yours anytime you want to, sir. Okay? My second point is I see tonight's agenda, the board is voting to approve the community block grant application. A few weeks ago, I forwarded the clerk how many grants were applied for in 2018, 19, and 20. The clerk responded, one for them years, the water main on Torrance. I looked at it and says, wow, now you apply for a grant after I pointed it out on my last flyer to you. I think it's cute, Mayor. It's about time, but it's too late. Also, tonight you're going to approve a $50,000 police vehicle and a $60,000 piece of equipment for the fire department. They might need that, I'm sure they do, but I got to ask, why not apply for a grant for both of them? Thirdly, the board approved a $175 credit for that the CARES Act. I'm assuming everyone on the board here owns a home, so you all get the $175 credit. Thing is, I've done some digging over the last couple of weeks, and I talked to the principal of Burnham School. Burnham School has 90% kids are in poverty. I also went on the website and to Google it, I says, what's the Village of Burnham poverty rate? It popped up a picture of Duckworth, picture of Durbin, and it popped up 24% poverty rate in Burnham. I'm thinking to myself, you know, you guys got yourselves, you're part of the credit, but the most needy people in the village, Mayor, you wrote this thing and you all approved it. The most needy people in the village don't get a penny of it. Also, after the meeting last time, my neighbor Steve and I, John, you called me over by you. You're the finance chairman. I asked you, you told both Steve and I asked you, what do you guys plan on doing with the remaining 420 grand that's sitting in the general fund now? Your response to us, whatever we want to. So basically the money's gonna be sitting in the general fund while all the needy people, the neediest in Burnham, sit and get nothing for it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
Yes, I
I'll
have.
ask for
My name is Pamela Dickerson, and I live on the 2600 block of Goodrich. And we would like to ask for speed bumps on our block, because we've had, about 2 years ago, we had someone to run into one of our buildings on the corner. The guy didn't have any insurance, so our insurance increased because of that. And, you know, I talked to the mayor, maybe like a couple of weeks ago, and even last year, maybe about some speed signs, because these people fly down our block. They don't stop at the stop signs. So asking that, and then also about cleaning the lot behind the townhomes here, because we called the village, our building, New Burnham Prairie, we called the village about, well, we'll say a month ago, because it was before the big snow, and no one still hasn't cleaned that lot, and it looks horrible. So those are the two things I wanted to address.
Is there lots of retention time?
No, it's just a vacant lot, you know, the townhomes, it's only 4 set of townhomes, and they never did finish the lot, but now it's just full of garbage.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is David. I live in 14057 South Saginaw, and I got 4 kids. And I come for the same thing, for the speed bump. So the people, man, don't respect the signs, just go fly. And a lot of kids is in the corner playing. And I think it's necessary, the speed bump for kids. Yeah, and I got videos, a lot of videos. Yeah.
Excuse me, may I have your last name, please?
Roma, David Roma.
Thank you.
Okay, well, certainly those are very important issues to us as village officials, and your concerns are our concerns, and we will certainly look into those two matters. And there are some other areas as well. We will get that taken care of. Are there any other public comments? I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
One more, man. One more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When I come home to work,
Excuse me, may I have your name, please?
Sure Brian.
Thank you.
When I come home from work and coming up the bridge, I get to the bottom of the ground, I will turn my blink on. So when I get ready to make that left, a lot of times, even though that's a one-way going west, sometimes a lot of cars are coming this way, and I'm almost out of an accident.
By the fire station?
Yeah, when I make that left, sometimes it's a lot of cars, sometimes they coming that way, and, you know, I'm causing an accident, so.
Okay, now that'll be a little bit more complicated, but we say we'll try to find some type of resolve for that as well. Okay, are there any other public comment? I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting to the public.
There's a motion on the floor by trustee Richardson to close the meeting to the public. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Claybrook, will the clerk take the roll?
Trustee Cap?
Yes.
Trustee Bonner? Yes. Trustee Garcia? Trustee Greer?
Yes.
Trustee Richardson?
Yes.
Trustee Claybrook?
Yes.
The motion passed, meeting is now closed to the public, thank you. We would like to say welcome everyone here this evening. We had a drive-through COVID testing on Monday at the Village Hall. That was very successful. Trustee Greer will give more information and have a report about that. And also that spring is almost here, so we ask if people to kind of clean up a little bit. We see in garbage and stuff, kind of like in the street, on the parkways and whatnot, so we would appreciate it if the people would give that some attention. Comcast, I did speak to Comcast a couple of days ago, concerning the wires at the trailer park. And they will send someone out to bury the wires. And I gave that contact number to Mr. Jasmine as well, so he'll be reaching out to the person that's in charge of Comcast. And there are issues that we have, that we need to take them to the proper authority. You know, the village of Burnham, you know, has to be within a legal mandate in order for us to make certain decisions. And just like we can't come into your house and tell you that the light is too bright, we don't like the light, turn it off. We don't have the legal authority to do that. So if people have issues, if you have issues with your landlord, then it needs to go to the landlord. And it should not come to the village of Burnham. Because we have to make sure that we don't involve ourselves in any type of litigation that would be unwarranted. You know, so we've been at this for a while, so we kind of do have a little experience at there, so we want to keep the village out of the business that we don't need to be in. Now, if it's the issue of public safety, you know, something like that, that we certainly would like to know about that, and we'll try to do whatever it is that we can. And it's very, it's very difficult being a public servant sometimes, but one thing I'll have to say, I mean, if we tell the truth, then you won't have to remember the lie you told. And the other thing I would like to say is that at this time, I did speak to Mr. Jasner, and I'd like for him to get up at this time and to express what he expressed to his tenants at the trailer. Mr. Jasner.
Yeah. You know, I talked with the tenants out there. Carol is our manager out there. She's on site. She lives there. She is that go-between for them for any concerns, any issues that they have to bring to Carol. She's been working with Comcast for a year now, at least.
3 years.
Trying to get them out there to bury their lines, put their lines in the ground. It was a few years ago. It looked like little India out there with all the lines coming from the street. So we cut those all down to clean it up. And since then, they've run new lines, and she's trying to get them to bury them. The water meter credit that came, we have 2 meters out there. We're dividing that up between the tenants so that that can get distributed to them, so that, you know, it's not $175 to each of them, but it's doing what we can with what we've been given. Just trying to do things fairly. So, yeah.
I think so. In other words, instead of the people coming here and trying to make it Burnham's responsibility, and starting trouble here for political reasons, and trying to hijack the meeting on something they could have just come to the landlord and spoke to about. And so, like you're saying now, you're going to give them the credit, and that would probably be equivalent to a month of a month of free water for them. That would be my estimation.
Yeah.
So again, so I'm glad you did come tonight, and I invited you. And the village of Burnham is about helping the people that we can. Whatever we do, we're gonna make sure it's legal. I mean, because I'm not going to jail, I can tell you that right now. Okay. All right, with that being said, thank you.
Can I just say one thing about that?
No,
No, it's
open
closed.
session is
No,
closed.
it's closed.
It comes
The
from
last thing, we get ready to turn the lights off, Mr. Johnson. The last thing is that, hold on for a minute. Well, the last thing is that I often tell people that the village of Burnham is doing better right now than any time in Burnham's 113-year history. Okay? 113-year history. And tonight we're going to show you some examples as to why, that is. Okay. And Matt, and at this time we'll ask Leslie Freeman from South Suburban Mayor and Manager, and so she assisted us with a major project, so.
Okay,
we'll
you want that light on up there? Can everyone see?
Mr. Johnson.
Right up there.
Thank you. Like Mayor Polk said, my name is Leslie Feemister. I'm the transportation planner for South Suburban Mayors and Managers. We are a council of government that represents 45 municipalities in the south suburbs, South Cook, northeastern Will, and we work together to ensure that communities are getting all the resources that we can to get them. Obviously, as a transportation planner, I don't do all resources, just the transportation ones. And I have been working with the village for quite some time to help bring a lot of those here. And we have some really exciting projects that are upcoming. So back in 2020, last year, the Village of Burnham teamed up with Calumet City for reconstruction of State Street, Dalton Avenue. So that's going to include new crosswalks, and Matt will talk more about all the details of it, and sidewalks and a side path. Back in 2019, I think is a really exciting project that's been waiting a long time. The Village of Burnham applied for and received $3.8 million to do a grade separation of Burnham Avenue right by the Hegwish train station. So that will be no longer waiting for trains that are going on there on Burnham Avenue, which is a really huge amount of money. And it was one of the first times ever that there could be, I agree, it's a great project. One of the first times ever that there could be 100% funding for a project, and Burnham received that. So they've been doing a lot of really great things, and Matt Berger here from Mott McDonald is working on these projects. And he's going to go into a little bit more detail. Come on down, Matt. The $3.8 million is for phase 1 engineering.
Right, so I want to make sure that they understand that because, you know, it's going to be, a lot more money is going to be needed.
Yes.
To finish some of the things.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm sure you're all familiar with what happened on Torrance with the grade separation over there. So once you saw construction, the project had already been in the works for about 10 years. So it's a very long process, and it's a very costly process. But you can't start until you are able to get that phase 1 money and be able to move forward with it. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to stick around and assist the Village of Burnham in getting the rest of these funds and making sure that this project happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay. All right. I'm Matt Berger. I'm with Mott McDonald, and I'm here to share some upcoming projects that we have here in the Village of Burnham. So real quick, we'll just I'll give you a little more introduction on me and everything, but we have 2 projects I want to talk about: the Dalton State Street project, and then the Burnham Avenue grade separation, and then we'll just close this out. So you might not have ever heard of my company, but we're a global firm. So the village is getting resources that we have across the globe here to tap into some of the latest and greatest things that are going on in engineering, construction, you know, for the village will have for resources there. So the first project is the Dalton State Street project. And back in 2016, Calumet City and the Village of Burnham teamed up together, and they identified a purpose and a need, you know, that they needed to improve the Dalton State Street corridor. There were some safety concerns. There's obviously some mobility concerns also too, with multimodal, pedestrian, truck, vehicular, and then it also has an economic impact to the area with the businesses in both communities, and then the residents as well too, in their ability to get to work. So with that, they decided to do a joint project to go after the improvements from I-94 all the way down to State Line Road. This is a phase 1. It was submitted, and it was actually funded through Cook County through the Invest in Cook program, receiving half of the funding and for the phase 1 engineering study. So it's about 2.5 to 3 miles thereabouts, and Calumet City threw a couple of little local roads on there too that were impacted on it too. So when you have the project, when we say preliminary engineering, final engineering, construction, as Leslie mentioned, there is like a little bit of a process that's associated with this. And it's not something that you can just generate right away. In this case, for this project, you have 2 different local entities that we were communicating with, and they're both working very collaboratively together really well. And then you have the Illinois DOT. We also have to respond to Cook County because they are funding. You know, they are a partner in this project, helping out with some funds. And then when you do an engineering project in the preliminary engineering stage, it's not just generate some blueprints and build it. What you're doing is you're putting together an alternative analysis. You got all the data collection, survey, geotech, which is their soil borings that you see. We were doing pavement cores because there wasn't adequate record of how State Street was actually constructed. So we were doing all that data collection also to find out where the utilities were, some of the other needs, and then you kind of pull it all together, and that gives you a basis in order to kind of start putting together some of the plans. And then you work through your alternative analysis. Where can you get the most bang for the buck for a project, and how can you provide real value for the community so you're not just wastefully spending money. But another huge component of it is environmental. Nowadays we have to get environmental clearances for ecological, biological, we have to go with the historical preservation office, and we have to get all these different things put together. Hazardous waste, which I am happy to announce actually this morning, Mayor. We just got that clearance this morning. So that's news today on that. So I'm happy to share that with all of you. And then after that, once you work through the initial preliminary engineering, which we didn't start on this until 18 because the grant funding went in 16, or so, end of 2016, beginning of 2017. It was awarded later in the end of 17. We started moving on it in the middle of 2018, and we're just waiting on the final approvals. They're all coming in right now, and that's why it's taken it's about 2 years here. Then after you work through the preliminary engineering, that's 30% design, you move into final engineering design, and then you move into construction. And with this project, they do have segments of it funded through the STP program, which we will talk about in a little bit. So where we're at right now is we're getting ready to move into the phase 2 final design of this project. So here's a rough project schedule based on some of the funding that has come in, and then also too where things are slated. As we said, we're right there. We're just wrapping up the preliminary engineering design, just getting the last approvals. They're all coming in because you got all these different entities you got to get it from. So once we get that, we're moving through final phase 2, final design, and then it will go to it's slated for construction around 2023-24. So what we end up finding is there's a couple different locations where there's some major improvements. And really when you get from Alice Lane going east, what we're looking at is expanding it and widening out the road, turning it into a 3-lane section. This is something that we worked out with the Illinois DOT, the Federal Highway Administration, because they actually do have say on this road since it is a major collector for the area and also has high traffic volumes. And we're going to be adding in a 2-way directional turn lane all the way through, and then removing some of the on-street parking further down when you get east of Burnham Avenue. Along those lines too, you will also see some pedestrian improvements to adhere to the complete streets policy that the Village of Burnham and Calumet City have. So we will be making some pedestrian improvements in that area. And one of the big ones is for this project is tying in the Burnham Greenway to the future I&M Canal Trail project. CalSag, I'm sorry, thank you. The CalSag Trail bike trail connection. And that is where it comes down. It's going to come down right down Alice, linking back up, going all the way out through Blue Island and some of the other communities. I think out to Midlothian, if I'm not mistaken. Lamont, yes, okay. So it goes even further than the segment I was looking at. But what we were looking at is trying to figure out safety improvements. How do we accommodate that? So that was also factored in, taking the existing plans that are in the works, you know, for the from IDOT, the state, the village, and trying to then meld them all together to make the project work. When you get to the western portion of it from Alice, we're pretty much going to keep the same the vehicular traffic in the roadway. It's going to have, what we found is there's a really, really strong base. When they constructed the road way back when, underneath that surface that surface of the roadway that is really starting to deteriorate, you have a very good base for the road. And so what we're going to do is rehab it all the way up and reconstruct the top 2 to 3 inches of, or 3 inches of pavement. For this area, there's going to be some filling in of sidewalk gaps. There's going to be some ADA improvements. So that ties in some of the multimodal that you have to with accommodating some of the pedestrians. So to recap the Dalton State Street project, there was an opportunity for funding, and it was submitted, and it went to Cook County. The project was awarded the Invest in Cook funding for phase 1 engineering. My firm, we were selected to do the work, and we provided some working with the communities, trying to identify how the best alternatives would be, what the best way to accomplish what we're trying to do for this would be. And then the outcome, well, we're wrapping up here phase 1, and pleased to say, as Leslie mentioned, the project was submitted and it did receive $3.4 million for final construction here slated for 2023-24. So now the second project that I'm going to be highlighting here. This is the Burnham Avenue grade separation project, and a common question is, what's a railroad grade separation? So a railroad grade separation is, according to UP, it's just a project that includes an overhead or underpass structure that crosses the railroad. So this is where you kind of take a road and a railroad that intersect, and you lift one over the other in order to separate them. Goes without saying. So here are some examples. Now the one I got here on the left is actually one that my company just wrapped up. We just did this in North Carolina just this summer, or late fall. And that was a railway safety action one. And then the Torrance Avenue one is another great example. This is literally just a quarter mile down the street. And actually one of our partner firms that's actually working on this with us, Alfred Benish, they actually were the ones who did the work. So you're not only getting my familiarity with the area here with the Burnham Avenue grade separation, but you got the guys who did the Torrance Avenue one too are actually part of our team to do this work. So when we were going through the purpose and need, it goes without saying, you got all the dancing gates. We've all been stuck behind there, I know myself included multiple times, by the trains. There's a major safety concern. We got major mobility concerns. And then the health aspect too of idling cars, you know, and the emissions that it generates. So there's just a multitude of reasons and purpose and need for this project. So at a very high level, what the project's going to entail is, in green, we're going to do some connections, and this is going to connect to the future Burnham Greenway connection. That's a pedestrian trail. But the area that we have highlighted in yellow right there from 1 to 3, what that is going to be where we do a grade separation. We are either going to take the road above or below the railroad tracks or lift both of them. We haven't gotten to that point yet. We're waiting on the notice to proceed from IDOT that the funding has come through so we can start work on the project. And then the blue is going to be the pedestrian improvements tied in, so that way we adhere to the complete streets policy of the community. So here's just a snippet of from CMAP, and it's getting the award. $3.8 million, as Leslie had mentioned, and it has a lot of support from even residents who attended the meeting, which was very impressive. So along with Mayor Paul and Senator Duckworth. So the project phases, again, we go through phase 1, 2, and 3. With this one, phase 1 is going to be, that's where we're at. It's going to be a lot of work. We are dealing with City of Chicago. We have Cook County on board to assist us with this project. It's also, since it's fully funded too, we have to adhere to IDOT and Federal Highway Administration. We got coordination with South Suburban mayors and managers. CMAP, we got 3 railroads, which we have to get clearances from, NICD, CSX, and Norfolk Southern. And then we also have the Hegwish train station. We have utilities. So there's a lot. Coordination is going to be a huge component of this project. And then eventually it'll move through the subsequent phases. And one of the things that we put in there too is, as we work through the alternative analysis, one of the things that we're going to have to do for anything to be successful is we're hoping to also try and identify other ways that maybe we can add even more value to the project. So We'll be keeping our eyes out as we work through this project. Again, the preliminary timeline, it was slated about 36 months. We're projecting a little bit under that for it. But the first thing is we have to have like a laundry list of things we have to do. So we got to establish what the project goals, the community, what the plan is, and everything. We're going to gather data gathering. We're going to be doing underground utility exploration. You're going to see borings. You're going to see field crews out there. And then we're going to have to start identifying the conceptual alternatives. And when we start identifying the conceptual alternatives that could be above, below, we evaluate them. And then the environmental is going to be a huge component of this. We have wetlands, we have floodplain, we have forest preserve, we have 4F. So I mean, we got pretty much everything you can think of we're going to be working with to try and get the clearances for, which is not anything that happens fast. Some of the reviews times can be 3 to 6 months, you know, depending on what it is. That's just how it goes, unfortunately. But that's also to do our due diligence, so we just don't put in a road or a grade separation that kills an endangered species or it has some kind of other environmental impact to maybe historical land or something. So we got a 9-step process that we're going to work through, and it'll take a little bit of time here. But as we go through it, you know, these are what we're going to need in order to identify the alternative. There's going to be as I mentioned, the coordination, the field collection, the environmental studies. We got to look at the cost benefit. You know, how we can maximize that dollar amount, value engineer it, maybe see where we can find additional cost savings. And then there's also going to be stakeholder feedback, because what we construct has to fit within the community. That's a huge component of it. So we're going to have stakeholder outreach, we're going to have public engagement, community things, programs, and then we also have something very unique that I think everyone is excited about, is trying to see if there's a way to tie it in with an educational component too for maybe some of you. And then sequencing is a huge component, especially when you're dealing with railroads. How do you sequence this project? So that's going to be something also too that we explored. This is just a very high-level example of some of the things that we might see. This is something we put together as, just as we were looking at the project here, and we'll look at, this one just shows an alternative for an underpass. We'll look at like the alignments, what the grades are, how we can clear it, how we can get everything to work geometrically. So that's just one little component of it, but again, you have all the other things too, environmental costs as we work through this. So to recap with this one project, the opportunity was there was a need for it. It was clearly identified. The Village of Burnham submitted and went in after funding for phase 1 engineering through the STP shared fund, and I believe it was one of the highest in the Chicagoland area, so congratulations on that. My firm was selected to do the work. We're just waiting on everything is, the funds are all ready to go. And then,
so I guess the interesting part with that is a long process is the village had to put out a QBS and be able to say to people, this is the project that we're going to do, put in proposals for it. Then they went through the process of reviewing them all, then selecting one, then negotiating. Then they put in the agreements with IDOT. Now those agreements have been with IDOT for 9 months. So, even just this is before anything has even started. So the process is very, very lengthy. And we know it's a very worthy project and that it's going to, since it scores so well, we know how amazing this project is, and so does the entire region. So it is a lengthy process. You have to be patient with it, but we're going to make sure it keeps moving forward. Sorry.
Leslie, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
Also, so that they understand that the village was not the only one that selected Martin McDermott, that there were other people involved in the process.
Right.
Of who to select.
Yes, there was a whole committee, I believe. So Cook County was on the committee. They had 2 representatives that were on there. I was on there, Mayor Pope was on there, Luce was on there, and you had her, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we had a whole committee that was there and reviewed each one of the proposals, and we scored them separately, and then came back together and reviewed our scores. and we're able to negotiate that Mont McDonald was the highest scoring.
You listed, either matter, to the best of my recollection, I think this project is estimated to cost $70 million. Ain't I correct on that?
You're correct, yes.
$70 million.
Yes, and that's just an estimate, so once phase one is complete, we will have an even more specific estimate. So, you know, right now, that's a guesstimate, I would say, just because we're not sure about what we may find under, you know, who knows
Maybe
what.
more,
Right.
Yeah, and there's also some like very interesting things, like what you have right there in the picture is like, that's something we did in Toronto, where some of my staff from Chicago was actually involved in it. And what we did was, we didn't shut down that road, but we built this box underneath, and then we pushed it right underneath the railroad tracks. And by the time we had that thing built, we had everything up and running, and like, it was an amazing sequencing operation. It only took a week, you know, so, I mean, there's unique things, and with Torrance, one of the other unique things was they prefabbed that bridge and brought it out there in pieces that were already made, and they just had to just connect a couple of things and just rolled it on and swung it out there, and the build time was extremely fast. So, you know, that's also something that's going to be looked at too with it is, you know, does it cost a little bit more, but maybe we can expedite some of the construction time a little bit and provide less heartache, and then there's also the permitting component. So there's so many ways, you know, as this thing goes, that it could end up working out. And we won't know until we do the alternative analysis, of course.
Okay, and we got Uncle Stanley on the phone, so he said that he prayed that he'll be able to walk over the bridge, so we intend to walk over the bridge with him, so.
Mayor, we're gonna go as fast as we can.
We're gonna have a big walk on the bridge when it's done.
We're gonna go as fast as we can, so we can all do that walk sooner than later.
And with the $70 million price tag, we're gonna have to find multiple places to pull from for those kind of funds. So the STP shared fund is another possibility, but there's only a certain amount you can apply for. Since there are hospitals and emergency services and things like that, there's a wide variety of ways that we can go to be able to get more funds for this project to make sure it gets done.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What determines if it's an overpass or underpass?
Phase one will determine that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, once we look at all the conditions that are out there, what the railroads will let us do, what the environmental impacts, how the soil conditions are, groundwater is another factor. There's so many different things that go into it. And then what we do is we have we're proposing, it's gonna be like almost like a workshop where we look at the pros and cons of each one, negotiating high-level cost estimates, planning level cost estimates, and
there'll be
planning
a
level
public
schedules.
meeting where all of this is available to the public, and
Yes.
they can put in an opinion about it too.
Yeah, and there's going to be a multiple, there's a very rigorous public outreach campaign with this too, because this is a project that's very important to the community. So we have a specialist just on board just for that, to make sure that anyone who has a question, their voice is heard.
Yeah, the last thing, Matt, is that, I'm sure Trustee Garcia remember, because her and I was on the committee, that this project will involve 2 youth, from the village of Burnham, that be involved in engineering. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
So one of the interesting, or one of the exciting ones that what we built into this was, at Mont McDonald, we have a group that's called Cambridge Education, and they do STEM program for students. So we worked with our local education coordinator, and we came up with an idea to do a program, maybe with the schools. When we do get going, we can reach out and we'll see, you know, when they want to do it, how they want to do it. But what we would like to do is include one to educate students. Maybe we have some kind of little challenge for building a bridge or something like that. But something to get them thinking about that there's another thing that they can do in life, and maybe get exposure that maybe they hadn't seen before. So we're very excited about it. It's something that our education group just is chomping at the bit to get going on. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. This time we have the report report from Clerk Chavez.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The clerk's office continues to serve our residents with no interruptions of service during this pandemic. Because of the pandemic, the clerk's office has been closed for the safety of our residents and our staff. This was unprecedented event worldwide. We have continued to monitor the state's guidelines for COVID-19. There has been less reported cases of COVID, and with now having the vaccine available, we can move forward. I'm happy to announce that the clerk's office window will be open on Monday, March 15th. The office window will reopen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. We will continue to serve our residents over the phone or email or by our night job. Only one resident will be allowed at time to be serviced at the window because of social distancing is not available. Again, we will continue to practice social distancing, mask is required, and temperature check to be taken at the clerk's office window. The village will always seek and has always applied for grants to bring improvements to our village and reduce the monetary burden of our residents. On today's agenda, there is a request for approval for a CDBG grant application, which is requested every year. The Cook County received $429 million from the U.S. Treasury under the CARES Act. The village applied for it and met the criteria and was awarded $624,827.81 from Cook County Coronavirus Relief Fund. On January 6th, the village board approved a $175 credit to be applied to each water meter account from the funds received through the Corona Relief Fund. The remaining funds will be used to maintain village services, public safety, police, and fire departments. Calumet City Library, located at 660 Manistee Avenue in Calumet City, will start early voting Monday, March 22nd through Monday, April 7th. April 5th, I'm sorry. Mail-in ballots, applications for the April 6th election must be postmarked by election day in order to be counted. If anybody would like a mail-in ballot, I can provide one after the meeting. I have some here. You can also apply online to www.cookcountyclerkil.gov/agency/vote. Also, Treasurer Maria Pappas and ABC Chicago will host a Black and Latino Houses Matter on March 11, 2021. A phone bank to help Cook County homeowners find refunds, apply for property tax exemptions, and avoid the tax sales. It will be March 11, 2021 from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The number to call is 312-603-5105. And that's all I have now.
Thank you, clerk, for your report, and like the clerk said, that the clerk's office in the village of Burnham has not missed a beat, during the time of the process. So the office was closed because of the things been happening in the world. The whole world is different. The whole world has changed. This is based all over the world. It's all over the world, and it impacts the decisions that we make. Okay, so with that being said, that is why the clerk office has been closed. It was a matter of public safety. But now, with the vaccines going out, and things are getting better, then we can make the decision that she's already announced. With that being said, at this time, we will hear a report from Public Education and Health Safety and Welfare Trustee.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Some events for the month of March. Daylight saving time starts March 14th. Move your clocks up. Orthodox Lent begins March 14th. St. Patrick's Day is March 17th. Spring starts March 20th. Palm Sunday and Passover March 28th. Questions and answers concerning the coronavirus. Are there side effects? The vast majority of side effects are minimal and similar to those of other vaccines, including redness, swelling at the injection site, fever, chills, fatigue, muscle and joint pain, nausea, swollen lymph nodes. The bulk of the symptoms occur within the first few days of getting vaccinated. Dr. Fuchsi, and everyone knows who he is. He's the top expert on infectious diseases. He says, if you are lucky enough to get a vaccine appointment, you should avoid trying to get one specific vaccine. In particular, are waiting on a future kind. You should not go COVID vaccine shopping because all three of the vaccines are really quite good, and people should take the one that is most available to them. And there are quite a few numbers available to call in order to set up your appointments. Sometimes you just have to be very consistent, and you have to call and call and call and call in order to get an appointment. How does the vaccine spread? The virus that causes COVID-19 is mostly spread between people who are in close contact with one another, within 6 feet or with 2 arm lengths. Coronavirus incubation period. And on the average, symptoms show up in the newly infected person about 5 days after contact. When is the coronavirus most contagious? Researchers estimate that people who get infected with the coronavirus spread it to others within 2 to 3 days before the symptoms start, and are most contagious 1 to 2 days before they feel sick. How do we really know if the COVID-19 vaccines are safe? The Food and Drug Administration carefully reviews all safety data from clinical trials and authorizes the vaccines used only when the expected benefits outweigh the potential risks. Many people are recruited to participate in these trials to see how the vaccine offers protection to people of different age and races, as well as those with different medical conditions. What is the benefit of taking the vaccine? Benefits for taking the COVID vaccine: it will keep you from getting seriously ill, and it will protect the people around you. I have 4 numbers that you can call to make an appointment. Aunt Martha's Medical Group, the number is 877-692-8686. Community Vaccine Program, and that is the one that is connected to South Suburban College, 1-833-308-1988. Robbins Health Center, 708-293-8100, and Family Christian Community Center, 708-596-5177. We had a COVID testing March the 8th. It was very successful, and we had a total of about 27 people that participated in that. And I just want to remind everyone that a third stimulus check could arrive by the end of the month for most people. I think if you make under, $80,000. So that's it.
Thank you, Trustee Griffin, for your report and that important information. The Public Works and Building, Trustee Clay Brooks.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Public Works was out cleaning the village, picking up trash and debris, and also Mrs. Dickerson will definitely get better a lot and take care of that.
Thank you.
And then also we was out cold patching the streets today, and we're waiting to grade the alleys until it dries a little, and if you don't, you'll be pushing the water. And Dwayne, did you have anything?
No, we've been out several days picking up trash. When there's snow melt, you got trash up under it, so we're doing our best to keep up.
That's all I have.
I just want to thank Public Works and Blaine for working so diligently and always, even though he's short staffed. He does a wonderful job.
Yeah.
We've had several people that have been.
Speaking of alleys, many people through the years, have asked us about paving the alleys. It would cost approximately $40,000 to, pave an alley, and if we were to, start paving the alleys, it would probably take, with the money that we have coming in for that program, it would probably take, probably 15 or 20 years, and by that time, all the streets will be messed up. So, there is no funding for alleys in the state of Illinois. Now, if you take the motor fuel tax and use it for that, you can, but that is not. So, I just want to put that out there, because, sometimes people do request that, and it's not a practical solution, regardless of where it came from, who said it. There is no grant, for alleys, period.
We would have to put drains in those alleys too, that's
Yes,
a big issue.
absolutely.
You can't just pave an alley, you have to put storm drains in it to collect all the water.
And even right now, when it rains in the alleys, when it rains and the water go in the alley, at least within a day or two, the water can go in the ground. If you put asphalt back there without putting a drain in it, then the water will all go in the garage, all of it, from side to side. So, thank you, Trustee Gale. Next, is Trustee Garcia, ordinance resolution and plan.
Good evening. Discussion on consideration of and taking action to approve or not approve resolution number 2021R003 for authorizing the execution of the Cook County Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, 2021 program year application for the Village of Burnham.
Okay, so you make the motion, Trustee, did you make the motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution 2021R003, authorizing the execution of the Cook County Community Development Block Grant 2021 program year application for the Village of Burnham.
I'll second it.
Okay, let's put that in motion.
Trustee Cap?
Yes.
Trustee Bonner?
Yes.
Trustee Garcia?
Yes.
Trustee Greer?
Yes.
Trustee Richardson?
Yes.
Trustee Claybrook?
Yes.
Motion passed, thank you. Do you have anything else? Trustee Gale?
No.
No.
Finance, Trustee Cap.
I have a couple items. Discussion of, consideration of, and taking action on authorizing the purchase of an equipped police cargo van in an estimated amount of $49,857 for the Village of Burnham Police Department. Want me to explain it a little bit?
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
It's gonna be a van that's loaded with all the necessary safety equipment that you need at a traffic or accident site. It's gonna have horses and cones, plus all the police equipment as far as radios and all the safety equipment that the police department needs. So we had an incident a couple weeks ago, and we needed Calumet City to bring their van because they had a van that was equipped like that. So instead of us having to call Cal City to help, this way we'll be able to take care of it ourselves.
Cal City might not be always available.
Right, or they might be using theirs somewhere else. We got lucky the last time we were able to call Cal City, but this will be, we'll have our own van ready to go. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of the equipped police cargo van in the estimated amount of $49,857 for the Village of Burnham Police Department.
That is estimated, and it may not cost that much, so. We have a motion on the floor by Trustee Cap to approve this van. We need a second, please.
Second.
A second by Trustee Claybrook. Before I take the roll.
Trustee Cap?
Yes?
Trustee Bonner?
Yes.
Trustee Garcia?
Yes.
Trustee Greer?
Yes.
Trustee Richardson?
Yes.
Trustee Claybrook?
Yes.
A motion passed, thank you. Please, Trustee Garcia.
No, finance.
Go ahead.
Cap.
So, Trustee Cap.
The second item I have is discussion of and consideration of and taking action on approving the purchase of PPE gear, lockers, hoses, and 2 battery-powered fans with an estimated amount of $60,000 for the Village of Burnham Fire Department.
Any questions from the board on that?
I think that explains itself, right, what it is. They need extra PPE, they need more lockers, and they need hoses. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of the PPE gear, lockers, hoses, and the 2 battery-powered fans for an estimated amount of $60,000 for the Village of Burnham Fire Department.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Trustee Cap, a second by Trustee Richardson to approve this proposal. On the floor, take the roll, please.
Trustee Cap?
Yes?
Trustee Bonner?
Yes.
Trustee Garcia?
Yes.
Trustee Greer?
Yes.
Trustee Richardson?
Yes.
Trustee Claybrook?
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you. Is that it, trustee Cap?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you, trustee Cap. Public utility, trustee Richardson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Citizens Community Outreach Services is still taking applications remotely for energy services. The number to call if you need this assistance is 708-566-5143. That's 708-566-5143. And this is their CEDA program where you can get assistance with your electric and gas bills. And also for hot water heater safety, it's recommended by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission to set your water heaters to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, it will eliminate the risk of tap water scald injuries. And if you can set it even lower than that and still have the hot water that you need to satisfy, your what you would like the temperature of your water, you can lower it even lower than the 120. But as a safety, it's recommended not to have it any higher than that 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That is it from me, Mayor.
Thank you, trustee Richardson, for reporting that information. Also, you speak about these grants that you can apply. You speak about the grants that people can apply for. Is there, in the grant, there are many grants and things out there. I talked to a lady the other day, and she told me she got $5,000 for rent subsidy, helping her pay her rent. But you have to apply for it. And then, like the village of Burnham, apply for the COLA grant, or the CARES grant, for the same thing. These grants have to be applied for in order for you to get it. So, whether it's economy added, whether it's NICO, whether it's COVID relief money, like we have to apply for it. Once you apply for it, then it's yours. So that lady got that $5,000, that is for her rent. For her benefit, okay? It's the same thing with others. So there are different programs out there, and I believe ComEd has some information. We'll try to get that posted on the website, services, so.
Did they start a new program for this year?
I think so.
Because I know the other one ended December 31st.
Okay, we'll try to get it out. It'll be on the website. Okay.
This evening, a lot of things are still being held virtually as far as the park district, but it's really good to see the community involvement. It's really good to see all of you coming out. So thank you for coming out and being involved. And that's it for my report.
Thank you, Trustee Bowman. Is there any presentation of petitions? Is there any communication? Voters? That's not specific. Is there any unfinished business? Trustee Richardson, we didn't bring it up, but you want to tell about the COVID thing?
One to open up on State Street and one of the
The stove line.
All the safety, the bathroom, that something?
yes. I have
We read it actually.
Okay. Anything on the new business? I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. There's a motion on the floor by Trustee Claybrook. There's a motion by Trustee Claybrook. We need a second.
I'll second it.
The second by Trustee Campbell.